Well, hi. I just wanted to take some time off from work and say hello. I've been having some thoughts about AI, and I guess we all really have been thinking a lot about AI lately, about how it's going to impact our lives in terms of our jobs. If you are a recent college grad, maybe you majored in computer programming, you think your career is over. Perhaps if you're my age, you're wondering what place there is in the world for you. All these thoughts are going through our minds, yet I have a slightly different thought. And that thought is something that I think many of us haven't yet contemplated. And that is, what does this mean from the standpoint of the companies that are implementing this technology? In other words, right now we can see this technology's utility. These large language models are able to produce some, pretty fantastic results, at least on the scales that we're currently employing it. But it is unclear to me, and it is unclear to everybody, how these companies can possibly generate the necessary revenue to support the CapEx, the amount of money that they're spending on data centers. They're spending so much money, and the cost of operating these data centers is so excessive that it's not sustainable. Literally, for every $10 being spent, only $1 is being taken in by AI. And I'm talking about the most successful AI companies. Anthropic, for example, I believe only took in $10 billion last year and spent over $130 billion. Amazon, for example, which is a cash king, it literally printed money, has obliterated its cash reserves in its attempt to create data centers capable of supporting what it believes is going to be, small startup AI companies. Now, here's the rub. This reminds me a hell of a lot like 2008. In 2008, the banks were overly optimistic that the real estate assets that they were procuring, the subprime mortgages that they were giving out, would be fine because the assets would appreciate. And even if the particular property owner went under, the property would still pay for itself, and more than pay for itself, with a premium and a profit because the asset appreciated. Well, that didn't happen. The complete opposite happened. And yet we know that with AI, that is an absolute certainty, because the hardware that we purchase today has what? At most a 3-year life expectancy. Maybe we could eke out 6 years, but you're talking about spending $100 billion to build a data center that's obsolete in 3 years, that's only going to need to be retooled literally on an every year basis at what? The cost of $100 billion a year? It's not possible for there to be a revenue stream that's able to sustain that type of investment and that type of economic, and yet we're doing it amongst not just one company, but every company. And when the banks no longer, so what happens? Well, the people like Anthropic, like OpenAI, they go out of business. People that have bonds don't get repaid. The banks don't get repaid. So now what happens? Where did the banks get all the money from? The banks got all their money from people like you and I. Our deposits are what gave the banks the money to lend this. So what happens to our deposits? We say, oh, they're FDIC insured, until you recognize that the FDIC only has about 1% of the cash equivalents to what it insures. So if it insures $100, it only keeps $1 on hand. That's certainly not enough to make Americans whole if these banks go under. And so you say, well, maybe the government will do what it did in 2008 and prop the banks up. But in 2008, we were in a completely different fiscal situation. 68% of our total GDP went towards paying off our debt. Today, 110% of our GDP is used for paying off our debt. We don't have any more powder left over to fire if there's a problem. There is no bailing out the banks again. There's no money for it. So we get paid back. Do you know how long the FDIC has to pay back people? 99 years. How many of us are going to be alive in 99 years from now? This is a problem, and nobody's talking about it. Thank you for listening to me. And by the way, make sure to subscribe. The next video is so much better. It's on the Nephilim, and it's going to be great. You're going to love it, and I strongly suggest that it'll probably be dropping by either tonight or tomorrow. I will speak with you soon. Bye-bye.